This is the Schleg Daddy, and it's time to preview the next division of the AFC. This time I'm going to take a look at the AFC South. The Jacksonville Jaguars as a team are kind of similar to their quarterback of the past few years, David Garrard. Up and down. Some real bad extremes. There are days where the Jacksonville Jaguars could beat anybody in the world. And then there's other days that they couldn't beat the 76 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In 2010, it was really no different. The Jacksonville Jaguars took advantage of a somewhat soft schedule on their way to an 8-8 record. They finished second in the AFC South, banging pretty much neck and neck with the Colts until the last few weeks of the season for that divisional race. The Jaguars finished third in the league in rushing offense last year. No surprise with a quarterback like Garrard who could scramble a little, and then obviously with Maurice Jones-Drew and Rashard Jennings in that backfield. However, they did finish 28th in passing offense, and when you look at the defensive side of the ball, they're 28th overall in yards allowed and 27th in points allowed. So how did the Jacksonville Jaguars decide they were going to improve in 2011? I don't really think they did. They did go out and get Paul Plesney from the Buffalo Bills to plug in the middle of their linebacking core. That should help a little bit on the defensive side of the ball. But there are other notable moves, letting Mike Sims-Walker go. He might not have been great, but he was the best receiver the Jaguars had. And then they traded up in the first round for Blaine Gabbert. Yeah. Chase Daniel plus about 4 inches in height. So basically, by trading up to get Blaine Gabbert, the Jacksonville Jaguars are admitting that David Garrard is not the guy to get them back to the playoffs. And since Garrard is going to at least start the season for the Jaguars, do I have any reason to believe that that team's actually going to make the playoffs this year? So here's what to look for from the Jacksonville Jaguars this season. Is Mike Thomas going to step up and become a number 1 wide receiver, a 1,000-yard receiver? Is Mojo Drew going to be able to stay healthy all season long and return to his previously dominant form? Is their defense in Jacksonville that's received so much attention from the organization in recent years actually going to show some real, tangible improvements? And the bottom line is with the Jacksonville Jaguars is how long can David Garrard keep the starting job, and the Blake Gabbert watch has officially begun. I say Blaine Gabbert ends up starting by about week 7 or week 8, and the Jacksonville Jaguars struggle pretty much all year long. I think this is the end of the road, finally, for the Jack Del Rio era in Jacksonville, and I see this team honestly finishing no better than 5-11, and dead butt naked last in the AFC South. "2010, in a way, was the end of an era in Tennessee, both for Vince Young as the organization's quarterback of the now and the future, and ultimately of the Jeff Fisher era. The Titans finished 6-10 and were bringing up the rear last year in the AFC South. They pretty much struggled all across the board. They were 25th in passing offense. They were 27th in total yards, 26th in yards allowed on defense, and 29th versus the pass. So as you can see, with the exception of the running game, it only averaged like 107 yards per clip. With Chris Johnson, mind you, the Titans struggled pretty much across the board last year. It was an ugly end to the Vince Young, Jeff Fisher era. Make no mistake about it. So the Titans organization dipped a little bit into their past for their future. They brought in former Oiler great and Hall of Famer Mike Munchak to become their new head coach, replacing longtime Titans head man Jeff Fisher. Along with that, they brought in Matt Hasselbeck via free agency to kind of hold the fort down until Jake Locker is ready to take over. With a new quarterback and a new head coach, there are some major questions that have to be answered by the Tennessee Titans in 2011. How will these Titans fare under new leadership after so many years of the Jeff Fisher era? Will Chris Johnson, now that all the BS of his contract, and he said, oh man, come on now, I want my $30 million guaranteed, baby, and he got it. Will Chris Johnson continue to be an elite running back now that he got paid? Will Kenny Britt stay out of trouble and unleash his full talents and become the true #1 wide receiver that he is fully capable of being? And ultimately with the Titans and everything about 2011, the most important thing is not if the Jake Locker era starts, it's when it does start and how successful he will be initially. 2011 for the Titans will be about establishing a new identity under head coach Mike Munchak. So it's one of those situations where they could potentially have a better season than they had in 2010, and the record might not necessarily reflect that. The ultimate best case scenario for the Titans is maybe they get really lucky and they go 7-9 or 8-8, and Locker comes in with some of the weapons that he does have around him, like a Kenny Britt, like a Chris Johnson, like a Jared Cook at tight end, and is able to do a little bit of something and give that organization some life and some zuzu, and maybe this team will be more competitive all year. I don't think that's going to happen. When I look at Jake Locker, I very much see a guy like a David Garrard, a guy with plenty of talent and has that ability sometimes to have some really big games and then some really terrible games. And that's kind of what I equate Jake Locker to. So he's going to have to answer some questions about whether or not he can become a consistent quarterback in the NFL. I would say the Titans, if Chris Johnson runs for 1,500 yards, Kenny Britt stays out of trouble all year, and maybe their pass defense improves a little bit, I could say the Titans finishing about 6-10 and being third place in the AFC South, but maybe being a little bit better than the 6-10 record that they would have. "2010 was the 9th year of the Houston Texans organization's existence, and this was expected to finally be the year that the Texans busted through that glass ceiling and reached the Shangri-La of the AFC playoffs. Did it happen? They got hit by some bad injuries, and their defense was garbage all year long. They ended up finishing 6-10 in third place in the AFC South. Now, their offense was very, very good. Matt Schaub, among the league leaders in several passing categories. Arian Foster having a tremendous breakout year. Andre Johnson being Andre Johnson, even though he missed 4 games, still putting up monster numbers. The offense finished 3rd overall in total yardage. On the defensive side of the spectrum, however, they were 29th in points allowed and 30th in yards allowed. So it's no surprise, really, what the Texans' formula for improvement was going to be in the offseason again for the umpteenth dozen damn year. It was going to be all about defense, defense, defense. Somehow, amazingly, with the failure of the 2010 campaign, Gary Kubiak was able to save his job. I don't know how he did it, but the brother still got a job, so you got to tip your hat off to him. Gary Kubiak now knows that 2011 is basically shit or get time for him and that team. This is year 10 of existence. There is no excuse for them not to make the playoffs this year. So what did he do? He went out and got a new defensive coordinator, Wade Phillips, who's going to implement the 3-4. They got some better talent to help fit that 3-4 defense. They brought in Jonathan Joseph, the fine corner from the Cincinnati Bengals, and then in the first 2 rounds of the draft, drafted J.J. Watt, the big white boy defensive end from Wisconsin, and Brooks Reed, the outside linebacker from Utah. 2 guys that are very good fits for the 3-4 type of system that Wade Phillips loves to run. So what should we expect from the Houston Texans in 2011 on offense? They're going to be a high-powered offense. They'll be among the league leaders in rushing yardage, in passing yardage, total offense, and probably points scored. They have Schaub, a stud of a quarterback with great weapons such as Arian Foster in the backfield and Andre Johnson outside. What more should I say? And if Owen Daniels returns to form, oh baby, this is a top 5 offense, no question about it. On the defensive side, this is going to be a defense with Wade Phillips at the helm, with all these different moving parts coming in. They're going to be expected to pick up that defense very quickly and step their game up to start matching the offense's production. It's going to be very interesting to see how Mario Williams does as an outside linebacker in the 3-4. Me personally, common sense dictates the guy's 6'7", 290 frickin' pounds. And coming out of college, a lot of times he was compared to either a Bruce Smith or a Reggie White, and those were guys that could play end in a 3-4. So the Texans and Wade Phillips have decided they're going to put Mario Williams on the outside. I don't know if I'm buying that. But if Mario Williams is able to adapt to his new position, kind of being that Jason Taylor type elephant end, and is able to dominate from there, this Texans team could give the Colts a run for their money in the AFC South. Make no mistake about that, because that offense is very, very nice. It's just Matt Schaub needs to remember sometimes not to get too cute. And when you're in the red zone, throw that damn ball to Andre Johnson, because no one man, not named Darrelle Revis, can guard him. What do I ultimately expect out of the Houston Texans in 2011? Like I said, I expect them to be banging with the Colts all year long. I've seen things where the Texans are projected to finish 11-5 and 12-4, and I think that's a little bit high on the expectation levels. I would say somewhere around 9-7, more likely and not 10-6, and finishing a very close second in the AFC South to the Indianapolis Colts. – 2010 was a bit of a down year for the Indianapolis Colts. I realize they finished 10-6 and still won the AFC South, but they went to the playoffs and got bounced in the first round by the New York Jets, and they rolled the back of Peyton Manning maybe more than any season of Manning's up to that point 13-year career. They finished 4th on offense in points per game and 4th in total yards, but they were a very anemic, dare I say putrid, 29th in rushing yardage. They had an incredibly unbalanced offense, which to a degree is understandable because of the greatness of Peyton Manning, but they need more balance in order for that offense to be more effective, especially in the playoffs. And on defense, for a team that runs the cover two scheme is built on getting upfield and putting consistent pressure on the quarterback and forcing big plays and turnovers on defense. Last year, the Colts only had 10 interceptions and 30 sacks, which for a cover 2 team is not going to get the job done. There's been a lot of discussion in the offseason about Peyton Manning's neck injury, and there's been a lot of talk about how much time he could potentially miss and how much this could affect him. Look, Peyton Manning's got that consecutive games played streak. If he is able to walk, he is going to play, I promise you, that much. As far as how much it's going to affect his play, I really don't think it will that much. Once he gets into the flow of things, Peyton Manning will be just fine, just like he has been for most of the past 13 years of his career. Now, as far as the Colts as a team, they do have some issues. One thing they always seem to have trouble with, and they sure as hell did in 2010, was staying healthy. All these different guys going down at different times, like the Dallas Clarks or the Austin Collies or the Pierre Garçons. They've got to stay away from some of these injuries, my goodness. And they've got to be able to find an answer in the running game, whether that be 4th-round pick Delanie Carter or former 1st-round pick Donald Brown or former 1st-round pick Joseph Adai. One of those guys, or maybe a combination of 2 of them, have got to be able to step in and be a reliable, consistent performer at the running back position to help bring more balance to that offense, so that way the Colts can go from being what they've been most years, just a really great regular season team, to maybe being a team that could do more damage in the playoffs than they do traditionally. As far as the defense goes, they have to be able to get more pressure on the quarterback. They have to be able to force more turnovers on defense. It's necessary and vital in a cover 2 scheme. Ultimately, I still expect the Colts to win the AFC South in 2011. I think they'll have a record of about 11-5. Now, do I think they're going to have a lot of postseason success? Not if they don't force more big plays on defense, not if they don't get more consistent pressure on the quarterback, and not if they don't find more balance in their offense. Otherwise, they'll just be another really good regular season team that couldn't get it done in the playoffs. Let me know down below what you think of the AFC South. I am the Schleg Daddy. Stay tuned next for my AFC West preview. And Colts fans, you're welcome for Super Bowl 41. Rex Grossman wrapped that up specially nice just for you.